Anthony Dirienzo was a powerful and well-known man who always put other people before himself. He's seen as a hero in the eyes of many people, including the citizens of Derby, Connecticut, who understand just how hard-working he truly was. Anthony was born on April 12, 1902, in Fairfield, Connecticut. He attended school until the age of 12, when his father pulled him out of school and put him into work at the Farrell Birmingham Corporation, which produces plastic and rubber. Anthony never received a high school diploma or a college degree, but he was still able to survive World War I, the Great Depression, and the Flood of '55. This is the story of Anthony Dirienzo, a man who started working at a young age and succeeded against the odds. In 1917, Anthony signed the draft papers to fight in World War I. He was only 15 years old at the time, and got the draft papers signed by his older brother. His parents refused to sign the draft papers because they thought he was too young to join the war. Anthony also lied about his age on the draft papers by writing down he was born in 1899 when he was actually born in 1902. Anthony was a very courageous young man. He wanted to defend and protect his country. He became a second-class quartermaster in the United States Navy, which meant that he would steer the ship under the captain's orders. On April 6, 1917, the proposed war resolution was passed through Congress, and the United States was at war. Anthony and most of his platoon sailed the North Atlantic and were assigned to hunt and destroy German submarines. He was also a member of one of the destroyer ships during the war with Russia following World War I, prior to the Russian Revolution. From the day World War I ended in 1919, Anthony was viewed as a hero from the people of Connecticut. If it wasn't for the American soldiers like Anthony, who put their lives in jeopardy to protect our country, the United States wouldn't be what it is today.
After World War I, Anthony continued with working at the Farrell Birmingham Corporation. Later, he traveled to upstate New York, where he met a lovely woman named Jenny Pasgrove. Anthony and Jenny fell in love with one another and got married in 1922. Jenny was only 16 years old at the time, and Anthony was 20. They had 4 children together named John, Anthony, Charlie, and Angelo. During this time, it was common for the father to discipline the children by hitting them, but Anthony never laid a hand on his 4 boys. Jenny was a very tough and strong woman, but was also extremely caring. She was strict to her 4 sons by being the parent that would do the disciplining and hit them when they got into trouble. On Black Tuesday, October 29, 1929, the stock market crashed and the United States was officially in the Great Depression. The causes of this devastating time were the banking crisis, which forced 9,000 banks to fail in 1930. There was also an unemployment rate of 80%, which caused many Americans to be forced to adapt to their new lifestyle. Many businesses, including the Farrell Birmingham Corporation, which Anthony worked at, started to cut back their workers' hours and wages. Anthony was officially laid off from his job at the factory, but he was able to adapt. Anthony and his wife Jenny never owned a car or a house, but rented an apartment on Minerva Street in Derby, Connecticut with their 4 boys. He made sure there was always food on the table for his family, and he was also a member of the WPA during the Great Depression. This organization was the Works Project Administration, which President Franklin D. Roosevelt created in order to employ 8.5 million people at an average of $2 a day. When Anthony participated in the WPA, he worked on construction in the city of Derby. He also built a retaining wall at the old high school on Minerva Street. Anthony was a member of the WPA until 1943, when the organization ended. Even during a time filled with tragedies, Anthony was able to be strong and supportive for his wife and 4 boys. Once the Great Depression ended in 1942, and the WPA program came to an end in 1943, Anthony Dirienzo was able to get his job back at the Farrell Birmingham Corporation. Then, World War II had begun in 1939, and 3 out of 4 of Anthony's sons joined the war in 1941. Anthony continued to support his wife and their youngest son Angelo during World War II, and hoped that his 3 oldest sons would come back home safely. In 1945, Anthony made a suggestion at the factory he worked for, which saved $100,000 a year for the Farrell Birmingham Corporation. Shortly after, in 1946, Anthony decided to run for mayor in the city of Derby, Connecticut. Unfortunately, he lost in this attempt, but never gave up. He ran for mayor again in 1948 and succeeded as a Democrat. As mayor of Derby, Anthony built homes for World War II veterans and created 5 different complexes. He also built a new city hall, 2 brand new schools, and 3 new firehouses for his citizens. Suddenly, on August 19, 1955, the Naugatuck and Housatonic rivers, which surround the city of Derby, flooded catastrophically. The damage was devastating as many people's homes were flooded, and the factory Anthony worked at flooded twice. This disaster, which is referred to as the Flood of 55, is recorded as the worst natural disaster in the history of the state of Connecticut. As mayor of Derby, Anthony did everything he could to make sure his citizens were safe. He overworked himself while trying to secure his citizens and had a kidney infection. In order to help Anthony with this natural disaster, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers installed flood control walls along the Housatonic and Naugatuck rivers. This would protect the city and prevent future flooding disasters. Anthony was able to show how never giving up through hard times, such as a natural disaster or running for mayor, proves just how strong a person can be.
Throughout Anthony Dirienzo's life, he was extremely successful with supporting a family that he loved more than anything, and protecting the citizens of Derby. Anthony always put other people before himself and worked hard. He was the mayor of Derby for 12 years, which was 6 terms, and was re-elected 5 times. Anthony is proudly Derby's first mayor of Italian descent, and also the longest-serving mayor. In recognition of Anthony's hard work and constant determination, the citizens of Derby built a road called Dirienzo Heights in the 1960s, which is still there today. Anthony died in 1975 at the age of 73 due to diabetes and complications. Anthony is proudly recognized today as a hero in his favorite city, Derby, Connecticut, and by his family. Anthony Dirienzo is one of the few Americans who constantly worked hard through his whole life from the age of 12, and is seen as a true American role model and a true hero.